I'm here with Denise Macray, Director of Ethical Sourcing and Global Responsibility with Starbucks. Thank you, Denise, for being here with us today. I'd like to discuss a little bit about your partnership that you have with Conservation International. It's very unique, and it's been quite long running that you've been able to partner with a nonprofit and have both of you sort of meet your goals and follow your mission. So I'd like to step back before you update us on what's happening today and what were some of the reasons that you started this partnership with Conservation International?
Sure. Thanks, Denise. I'm happy to talk about it. It's one of the things that we're very proud of in the company because it is a relationship with a nonprofit organization that so closely aligns with our business interests. It's a great story to tell, and we see the impacts of that every day in our business. We started working with Conservation International in 1998, and the reasons for that were really that the organization looked at a map of the world, and CI had identified all of their biodiversity hotspot regions, areas of high biodiversity that were most endangered and at risk around the world. And they took that map and they overlaid it with a map of coffee, and because they suspected that there was something in common. And sure enough, there was nearly a perfect match with regions of the world that produce high quality coffee. And so it was a natural fit for CI to come to us and make us a partner with them and look at how we could collectively address issues of biodiversity protection, addressing climate change, doing things together to really help the people in those regions who are producing coffee become better stewards of the land, more profitable, to improve their livelihoods, their income. And so that conversation in 1998 led to a 10-year partnership over the last 10 years where we've worked very carefully to make what started as a pilot program in Mexico and evolved to many different regions, a sort of a way that we do business. And the way that changed was to change our practices, our operations, and how we buy coffee to address social and environmental and economic issues through a very logical framework that addresses sustainability.
Now, it's clear Conservation International came to you originally because, I mean, this was their mission to look at some of these areas. So what kind of value did you initially think? I know you've had 10 years or more of experience with working with them, but what were some of the original things that you were thinking, why is this going to bring value to Starbucks?
Well, actually, the funny story is that when Conservation International approached the company, they came and said, we have found some coffee in southern Mexico that in an area of high biodiversity that we think you should buy, and we would like you to buy a container of coffee from this area. And as a company, we said, well, we generally have never bought coffee from a nonprofit organization. We buy from coffee farmers and coffee producers directly. So we started off in a rather interesting dynamic of very different positions and trying to reconcile, well, how can we work together? But what quickly happened at that time is we recognized that, yes, for us, what we wanted to get out of this was to have a better understanding of what were those critical aspects of coffee production that were very much tied to the environment and environmental protection, because that goes to our brand. We had a mission, we continue to live that every day, to protect the environment and to give back to the communities where we do business. So for CI to come to us and say, we think we have a way that you can do that very effectively, and yes, we'll start in a pilot project in Mexico, but we will scale this and work with you to take this out to your entire business, that was very attractive. The other thing that CI offered us really was an opportunity to look at best practices around the world in all the coffee certification systems, really for them to do the things that we weren't very well suited to do. In other words, to bring the science, to bring the expertise, to bring that third-party perspective of what's important for protecting species, for doing a number of things in the area of development that really that wasn't our area of expertise. So by partnering with them, we recognized early on that this would probably have a good benefit to our business. And in fact, it did. What happened as a result was we did get a product that we could market to our customers. Our shade-grown Mexico coffee that resulted from that pilot in Chiapas, Mexico, has been a core coffee for our Starbucks business now for 10 years. And we have gone from 1 container to well over 50 containers a year in terms of volume. So that's significant. The other piece of it was, again, recognizing that the things that Conservation International was addressing were the exact issues that we knew we needed to address in our supply chain. To secure high quality coffee in the future from really remote locations, small farmers at the tops of mountains, required a view and a vision and an understanding of what those issues were that were pressing to those farmers and how could we collectively address them so that they were continuing to stay in business, that they were profitable, that they're protecting their soil, that they're conserving water and energy, doing things to preserve their environment and improve conditions for their families. So it went hand in hand for our business interests as we scaled and grew the company to work with CI. So from a alignment perspective, it made perfect sense to the business to partner with an organization like CI and focus on what we could do to improve and strengthen our supply chain.
Now, before you update me on how this has really been successful, you talk about a product that ended up being very successful. Can you just share maybe a nonprofit or for-profit? Was there anything that you needed to really overcome at the beginning or were you always just really aligned? Was there some kind of lesson learned for other companies that are looking to align themselves with nonprofits?
Sure, there's a lot of lessons learned, and I would say one was we've always talked about, which is, lesson learned is to have very good communications. So we have shared with CI, and they would speak to this as well, which is improved communications, figure out what is in our mutual interest and make sure that we are very open and transparent about that. And the reason for that is we're a multinational company. I mean, we're a US-based company, but we operate globally, we're across many countries, and so is CI. And we have our business interest, which is to grow our brand, to deliver great products to our customers, to expand the Starbucks experience. CI has their mission and their objectives, which is to raise awareness among consumers around the world about climate change and the threat to conservation. So from that perspective, you have to understand there's going to be very different conversations. And scientists in the conservation world will be speaking a very different language than the brand marketers in Starbucks. So we have to figure out how to reconcile that. The other thing is to focus on our core competencies and what are we really good at, and recognize that that's what we need to stay focused on. So for us, it was roasting and perfecting and producing the highest quality coffee. And for CI, it was really the science and work in the communities and biodiversity protection. So we made sure that we were each doing what we were really good at. And whenever those lines got crossed, we usually ran into problems. So we certainly had challenges when Conservation International, for example, started to get overly involved in coffee production or processing, or perhaps trying to help farmers in ways that they were not well suited or didn't have that experience. Likewise, we as a company were not the experts in conservation and species protection. So every time we thought we were doing something or pushing the envelope in that area, we needed to make sure that in fact it was the right science, or work with CI and let them do their work.
Well, the partnership that Starbucks and CI has had is something that many people have been talking about as a success story. Can you share an update a little bit on some of the new initiatives that have happened since you originally started in '99?
That's right. Well, over the 10 years, we did a lot of interesting things together. One of the things we did was we thought that replicating the model and the pilot that we started in Chiapas was the way to go. And so we started looking at other regions where we could do similar projects. In other words, organizing farmer communities that had the potential to sell high quality coffee, helping them access the market, for Starbucks to work with them on quality improvement, processing, improved technologies in the growing and processing of their coffee, while CI worked with them on land use planning, farm management systems, conservation systems, working with them on forest protection and species protection. But that pilot model quickly expanded. We had projects in Colombia, we had projects in Peru, we had projects in Indonesia, we started projects in Costa Rica, Panama, but there was a challenge with that. And the challenge with that is that every time we did that, we needed to have staff from CI, it was very resource intensive. And we started to think about what would be a better approach than replicating really the startup model that we had in Chiapas. And what we agreed upon collectively is that changing our practices, taking the best practices that CI had determined, the blueprint for coffee production, and integrating that into our supply chain would be more effective and more impactful. So the evolution of the partnership from a lot of pilot projects to taking the learnings from those, and instead of just continuing to seed more pilot projects, but instead take the learnings and weave that into our supply chain, had a bigger impact. The result of that was in 2008, we looked back on the 10 years that we had been together, and we made a renewed commitment to work with CI to address what is by far the most pressing challenge that the planet is facing right now, which is climate change. And we made a commitment of $7.5 million over 3 years for a relationship to do something very different with them. And that is to start to look at what results have we had over the last 10 years through our buying practices, and could we identify those specific practices that are addressing climate change and figure out new incentives and better ways to get those to scale. In other words, if we're asking farmers to do lots of great things to protect the environment, but there are trade-offs, and we need to now focus on what are the most critical things because time has run out, we can orient our resources, focus on those things specifically, and in turn, again, have a better model that we can show for the industry and for other commodities as well of paths that they can pursue. The other piece of it is to develop pilot projects, again, not around the production of coffee, but in pilot projects for carbon sequestration, where we can provide incentives for farmers and their communities to go off the farm, beyond the farm, and look at how they can protect forests. We found in 2008 that deforestation accounts, and CI was very alarmed about this, accounts for 20% of all CO2 emissions. So more than all the transportation in the world, if you add up the planes, trains, and cars, the reality is deforestation is producing more CO2 than the transportation sector. So what we can do to address that is provide financial incentives so that farmers are encouraged and in their communities are encouraged to keep those forests standing.
And how does this directly impact Starbucks? I mean, certainly the long-run supply of coffee.
Sure.
Is that what you're thinking, or is
well,
there
climate? We look at it really from the perspective that it's our responsibility. We're a global company. We are all on the same planet right now, and certainly climate change is going to affect our business. It already is affecting our business. We can look at the potential of natural disasters, the inability of farms to weather and withstand some of those calamities. We can look at the fact that changes in temperature are going to affect where coffee is grown and how it can be grown at which altitudes, things that would directly affect our business. We can look at the fact that overall we need to do something, and this is a way that we can do it through our business in a very effective manner. Again, it's not easy, and developing these pilots and figuring out how we're going to organize these farmers, how we're going to ensure that they are competitive and that there is a carbon market for them to tap into. Again, making sure that there's a market with a financial incentive so that they will maintain those forests. Again, we're not talking about coffee farms, we're talking about forests that are off the farms, but are essential because everything's related, it's all integrated. And I think CI brought us that perspective, which was to look really outside the box of our supply chain, where we very narrowly focused on, well, here's the discrete farms we buy from. Starbucks doesn't own any farmers, we're not vertically integrated. We buy from different farms every year, or in some cases the same farms year over year, but the point is we have to look beyond those farms because they're in the same ecosystem. So CI brought us that perspective, and they pointed out that really from a landscapes perspective, it makes a lot of sense to be thinking more broadly.
And has this been, especially in a time of economic downturn, it's sometimes hard for companies to have that longer run view because you're having to deal with shorter term profits. Has this been an issue at all in Starbucks?
Well, it's always an issue. I mean, it's a stress for any company to have to weigh those, to balance those. And I think, the commitment that we have, the vision, the mission of our company has given us the license to do these things and to do them well and to do them with the right partner organizations that are looking for impacts, are trying to make a difference. So we have the license to do that. Our customers expect that. Our customers who come to our stores for that experience every day, for that beverage, that high quality product that they're getting from us, they want to know that they're a part of something bigger. They also want to know that, where they're spending their money, that the brands that they're spending their money with are addressing these issues. So I think it's for us, it's a part of our business model. It will never, it's never going to go away. We need to do these things. We understand that. I think what it is incumbent on us now, and another aspect of our partnership with CI, is to start sharing those results, because consumers are being very careful about how they spend their money. People are becoming very well informed. They're scrutinizing very carefully the brands, the companies they spend their money with. For us to have had a partnership with CI for 10 years, and we know the results we've seen on the ground, the changes that have happened, it's incumbent on us now to share that with our customers in a very meaningful way. So we have been working in the last year and a half very intensively with CI to give them access to all of our supply chain information on the coffee side, all of the results and data from the buying program they helped us develop, to look at that data and analyze it, and it's phenomenal. They've done mapping to identify the farms, they've done field surveys, they've looked at all of the data that's in the database, the results of that, and have come up with some very, very powerful indicators that we are in fact addressing climate change in a very positive way. So now we need to tell our customers about that, and again, that's because it's tied to our business.
But it's very commendable. I mean, to open up the supply chain to an NGO, but of course they're your partner, and as you said, they're sharing some of the same goals for that. So these metrics that CI is coming up with is actually showing some impact, some value that has had over the past 10 years in this partnership. Is that correct?
That is correct, and in fact, so the metrics, and by the way, we have asked CI, we're making this very transparent, so although CI is the partner in this and we have a mutual obligation to be tracking the results and demonstrate that, we are being very transparent with our customers and with other stakeholders to show them the results that we have. So CI has been sharing this in a science community and in the coffee industry, and in fact they're going to be in Costa Rica at a research institute shortly to talk about these results because they're so powerful. What we have found, for example, over the last 3 years, over the last 4 years, we've had in our buying program some practices around conservation of natural resources. So we expect farms and suppliers that sell to us to be implementing conservation practices. We have a very, very strong, long list of standards and practices, indicators that they have to adhere to, and then third parties who assess them on that, evaluate their performance and score them. We looked at that data and we saw that there was amazing things that happened over those 3 years, things that the scientific community and Conservation International was delighted to see. For example, they had found that 99% of the suppliers that had been working with us over the last several years had not cleared any natural forest, any forest on their farms over a 3-year period. Well, that was phenomenal to see that since they came in the program, they had actually fulfilled that commitment. I don't think any rainforest conservationist could see that kind of result in any other mechanism, and the scale that we're talking about is phenomenal. At the same time, the access to education, the health standards, the social practices that we put into the guidelines, because again, CI was concerned about farmer welfare and what is the health of those communities in those ecosystems. To see that those practices have changed dramatically and have improved is phenomenal. So getting those types of results and talking about them, it doesn't, and we're not doing it because we're trying to show us that we look good and isn't this great. We're doing it because this was a formula that we put together with CI to address these global issues, and it's incumbent on us again to show that in fact they work, because if they don't, we need to make some changes, and there will be things that we find, I'm sure, that we have underperformed on, and we'll need to address that and figure out how do we improve, how do we make those changes scalable.
Sharing the information also can be an inspiration for other organizations that are facing similar kinds of issues, whether it's in coffee or other types of agricultural areas. So this is really great. I really appreciate you sharing your time, your inspiration, the innovation that Starbucks is doing, and partnering with CI. It's a very unique partnership, but we're something that we're seeing more and more of companies aligning themselves with NGOs and doing well by doing good at the same time.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you, Denise.
Thanks, and I think we do see that there's been a lot of pickup from other industries and companies that contact us and want to learn about how we've done this, and CI has been able to also take this work that this model they've put together with us and take it to other industries as well. So we think there is hope. We know there's a long ways to go, and we've got some critical challenges in addressing climate today. But it's good to have a partner like CI, and as well as other nonprofit organizations we work with to collectively tackle these things.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Denise.